Everybody to another episode of the She Is Unleashed podcast, y'all. This is take 3, so we're brain it works. This is the podcast for high-performing, faith-driven women who are rising in leadership, expanding their influence, and refusing to compromise their peace, their purpose, or presence in the process. Y'all, I am your host, Dr. Mirriam Knight. I'm a licensed clinical psychologist in the state of Ohio and in Southern Africa, and an executive transformational coach for high-performing men and women who are looking to heal, expand, align, and lead from a whole place rather than a place of trauma and dysfunction. Today, we're talking about strategic visibility, the kind that doesn't just make you seen, but makes you trusted, the kind that expands your influence without losing your integrity. If you've ever wrestled with what it looks like to transition well, there we go, to lead through public pressure or walk away from a platform without losing your name or peace, this episode is for you. Today's guest is my sis, powerhouse Twaneika Crawford. She is a leadership strategist, the founder of Core of Courage Leadership Solutions, and the creator of the Clean Exit Method, a command system for high-level leaders navigating exits with composure, conviction, and clarity. Sis, welcome again to the show.
Thank you so much, sis, for having me, and I am honored to take this space with you to have this conversation.
Awesome. Well, go ahead and tell us a little bit about who you are, your story and your journey, and what led you to create this space of core of courage leadership solutions and this methodology called Clean Exit Method.
Okay, so December 1st, 2018, I remember writing in my journal during my prayer time that the year of 2019 was the year of the crossover for me. I had no idea that that prophecy would cost me everything comfortable as I began to have to walk away from my leadership role and my marriage as a pastor's wife. And I had to lead that transition alone with no type of guide or playbook. I had to lead it with composure, under scrutiny, while also dealing with private sabotage attempts. And so I tell people all the time that if Joshua in the Bible was a woman, it would be me.
Come on.
Leadership, when it comes to the leadership space, there are a lot of leadership information about how to enter a role, how to sustain the role, how to grow in the role, but you don't hear many conversations about how to exit the role. And so that is the gap that I am looking to fill here and that I feel in the space of leadership development.
That is awesome. I love how God uses our personal journeys to cause us to navigate spaces, and in navigating those spaces for ourselves prepares us to be able to help other people walk through that. And so I'm excited to just understand a little bit more. I'm going to put some light on.
Okay.
Because, oh, wow. It started getting dark over here. I think it's about to storm.
Okay.
But anyway, I love how God uses these journeys that he takes us through so that once we've walked through our own Jordan experience, we're able to help other people navigate those spaces as well.
Absolutely.
Now, I'm hearing you say, so the key component, today's episode is titled Strategic Visibility, expanding your influence without losing your integrity. When you are put in a position where you have to exit, where you have to leave a situation where you are in the spotlight, in the limelight, and you are known in a certain way, and you have to navigate that exit with integrity, navigate that exit, like you said, with composure, conviction, and clarity, while you are experiencing self-sabotage internally from the people that you least expected it from the people that are supposed to have your back, from the people that are
Yes.
supposed to love you, and not losing that. When every cell and fiber in your body wants to come back and have some kind of response and reaction,
Absolutely.
recognizing that you can't afford to. You can't afford to lose your composure, lose your integrity, because you are in the limelight. Everyone's watching your every move.
Yes.
What was that like for you personally?
It is something, because when you're under scrutiny, is people are not. There are some people who are watching. There were very few who were watching me for support.
Mm.
Most of the time, they're watching just to see if you'll fail, just to see how you'll respond, just to see how you'll act. But that experience was challenging. It was very challenging, but for me, my what I had to do was I had to basically have a spiritual anchor, the Word of God,
Mhm.
and then I had to make sure that I kept maintain safe spaces. So instead of emotionally leaking, or
Mhm.
instead, I had safe spaces to speak in,
Yeah.
and the main thing was being a steward of my new leadership identity that I established while I was still in the leadership role, while I was still in the midst of the sabotage. I didn't wait until after I left to build this. This is something I became before I ever exit. The exit was a result of who I had become.
Mhm. So you're saying that you had to navigate some internal shifts in identity prior to you even exiting. So let's backtrack just a little bit.
Okay.
At what point did you realize that, first of all, at what point did you first feel the nudging and the inclination that transition was coming? And what were those signs?
Okay. So the nudging, I wasn't conscious of it. A lot of times it's through situations. Now that hindsight is 2020, right? Now that I'm looking back, I'm seeing that that morning, December the 1st, was the beginning. But the signs that it was time to exit for me was because number one, it was burnout. I was burnout. I was showing up every Sunday, every Wednesday, or whenever duty called. I showed up regardless of what occurred before service.
Mhm.
And I was pushing others forward, making sure I protected the brand, making sure everything don't fall apart while I was in the meantime.
Mhm. Mhm.
I was overextended. I physically, bald spots in my hair. I developed digestive issues that I still am working through to this day.
Mhm.
Those were all signs and nudgings, but I didn't realize it
Mhm.
at the time. And sis, I want to make sure that I answer the second part of your question.
So the first part was, how did the signs that exit was prominent, and
Hmm.
how did you know now is time to exit?
For me, the final draw. Not only wasn't it safe
Mhm.
for me physically, emotionally, but the main thing was I was tired of shrinking, and I was tired of not being able to live from my identity. Like, if you are
Mhm.
in a place where, especially, we are women of faith in
Mhm.
this community,
Yeah.
if you can't be who God says you are,
Mhm.
if you look in the Word and see Genesis 1:26-28 was my foundation through my transition. If I can't be fruitful, if
Mhm.
I can't multiply, replenish, and dominate
Mhm.
in my leadership space, then
Mhm.
I know that I'm in the wrong place. Because what happens is we make the mistake of staying and having to be forced out. And what was revealed to me is I was in a Moses territory with a Joshua mantle.
Come on. Mhm.
And the way you know that is when you're in this space. If you look at in the Word, Moses helped deliver them out of Egypt and the children of Israel. And now he is having to manage trauma. He's having to go against mindsets that wanted to stay stuck and wanted to stay stagnant. But if you look at Joshua, Joshua was called to transition them over and cross over the Jordan. But in the Moses territory, they were not in a place to be able to do so. So if you're in a space that you've outgrown in your leadership identity, it's going to cause triggering. You're not going to be able to move forward. So a lot of leaders are feeling stuck. They're showing up every day, but they feel stuck and stagnant where they are. And it's all of this is signs that it may be time to pivot.
Absolutely. What does it take for you to finally make that propelling decision to exit?
It takes courage to not need validation from others. Because if you think about it, sis, I was, when it comes to, I don't know if you grew up in a religious, I'm kingdom now, and so when you grow up religiously, I realized that I was raised up to trust everybody's voice but mine. You know what I mean? Most of us are living reactively. We don't. If you have to know why you're doing what you're doing. A lot of times we're doing what's expected of us from other people to appease people, and so I had to understand that I can't control the actions of what other people will do or what other people will say. My job is to control myself, and my responsibility is my decision and alignment and obedience to the Lord, regardless of what other people. That's not my control. People are going to be people.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I love what you said. You have to make that move to obey God without validation. You got to shift internally. So let's talk about that shift. The you before and the you after, as God was reshaping and remolding your identity in preparation for the exit. What did that look like? So tell us what Twaneika before would do versus what Twaneika afterwards would do.
The first thing, I was a very reactive leader. And not just at first, like in my younger days, because I got married at like 21 or something like that. And so I was still a very reactive woman as far as controlling my emotions, emotional intelligence. That is the very first thing I had to get grips of, because the scripture that I anchor in is, if you can't, you're like a city without walls if you can't control your spirit. And so therefore, that's why I didn't have boundaries. If you don't have boundaries. And so I was a woman who didn't have boundaries. I needed validation. There was a negative core belief that I had to face in therapy that I didn't even know about through the it was a mind laddering exercise. And through that exercise with my therapist, I found out that the negative core belief I had was that I'm valueless. I didn't even know I was carrying that around. And so the situations that I was in, it proved and it prophesied what I thought about myself to me. And so the second thing I had to do was take responsibility for where I was. That was the first thing. Self-awareness is key. And so it wasn't about blaming myself for the situation I was in, but it was just taking responsibility, because that then empowered me to make moves and make decisions that brought changes to my life.
Absolutely. Because when we don't take responsibility, when we don't take ownership, and we stay in that place of blaming, we remain victim and we remain powerless.
That's right.
To do the things that we need to do. You mentioned
Absolutely.
earlier that it takes courage. Courage
Yes.
is not that we're not afraid.
Right.
Courage is that I'm afraid, but I got to do this anyway, because this is what God is leading me to do. And that's the key part. I've got to do this because this is what God is asking me to do.
You just hit the nail on the head, because I feel like a lot of times, if we're not careful, we don't tell people. We're not transparent, authentic enough to tell people. Like we'll use scriptures to cover up real stuff that we deal with. And I always say, I know that God doesn't give us a spirit of fear, but our nervous system will fear. It does. When anytime we are facing something new, our brain goes in fight or flight mode. And it's not that we're in danger, we're just uncomfortable. And so a part of that is understanding that through this transition, you may be in leadership and misunderstood. You may be in leadership and lonely. You may have to set some boundaries and cry while you're setting the boundaries. Literally, I found myself setting boundaries at times, crying, feeling guilty for setting the boundaries. But it was about making the decisions anyway. It was about, because a lot of times when you begin to walk it out, your nervous system will regulate. And you'll understand, like, it was just, you got to embrace discomfort, because it's coming. It's not gonna, you can't wait on it to leave or not manifest itself to make a move, because you'll never move.
That part. Absolutely. So what I'm hearing you say is there's a reframing that has to take place. There's a reframing of the situation. There's a reframing of the language that you're using. There's a reframing of the emotions and the experience you're having in your body, saying, body, this is not, we're not in danger. This is just uncomfortable, and uncomfortability is okay. It is necessary because we're shifting of what we know into an unknown territory. But it's okay because the Lord is with us. That is so powerful. You said, you mentioned this earlier, religious background versus a kingdom background. Now, for people that are new to this faith space, can you quickly just, what is the difference between a religious mindset and a kingdom mindset? It's just thundering. I hope that this is not coming into the recording.
Hope not. A religious mindset is a performer. And a kingdom mindset is obedience from the core of who you are. It's who you are in Christ.
It's a spiritual formation versus pretending and putting on a show.
Yes, which is why my framework is an inside out approach versus an outside in. Because you can't truly do something new until you become someone new.
You can't do something new until you become someone new. And that's a key component. I think a lot of people try to exit being the same person. They haven't changed, and it's not sustainable to exit and step into new spaces. So let's take it back to these illustrations, right, of the wilderness and dying in the wilderness. When you refuse to, you said they're forced exits that we sometimes experience in our lives. And you know, when we don't believe God and we hold on to a Moses mindset while we have a Joshua mantle. Talk to us about the death in the wilderness. What does that look like if you don't move with God and you don't make that exit?
If you don't move with God, you will be just like the first generation, where you'll forfeit your next leadership space. Because what happens is, if you pay attention to the children of Israel, their mindset and perception was off about the exit. It was deliverance. It was evolution. But because it was uncomfortable and it looked new, and they saw themselves as grasshoppers, according to the word, they had a grasshopper mentality about themselves, it caused delayed obedience. It caused resistance. And one thing we can't do with forced exits is, the worst thing you can do, I tell them in my framework, is resist. You forced exits shouldn't be resist. You structure them. And so I tell people all the time that God, that any type of forced exits, that's God's job, is deliverance. That's deliverance. Right? But possession is ours. Our next space will not fall in our laps. And as women of faith, if we're not careful, I've witnessed this. This is not everyone, but if we're not careful, we'll find ourselves praying about things that we have full control to execute on. And we say we're waiting on God to move, when actually is He did His part already. And He's not obligated to do things for us that we can do for ourselves.
Come on. So I think I mentioned this as well when we were talking in these other
takes.
Was that I had this gathering on Monday, and we were talking about how sometimes when God tells us to move and He tells us to exit, because of what we're familiar with, even if it's dysfunction, we can find ourselves holding on to and clinging on to, even in forced situations where someone's telling you you need to
Mhm.
leave,
Mhm.
and you are holding on to it and you're insisting that you want to
Mhm.
embrace familiar spaces, and we're holding on to that. We want the new, but we're not willing to let go of the old. Reinventing yourself, reinventing your leadership, reinventing, because you moved from a place where you were first lady, you were prominent, you were in the spotlight, it was well known. It wasn't just like you were somebody in the corner over there,
Mhm.
but you were well known. Making that exit, you are doing it in the limelight, in the spotlight, to
Mhm.
reframe
Mhm.
and to restructure your whole identity as no longer this, but something
Mhm.
else.
Mhm.
What does visibility look like for you now that you're no longer in that spotlight?
Absolutely. I think the key is understanding that the Lord doesn't bring you out of something with nowhere to take you. He's Alpha
Mm.
and Omega. Anything he starts, he finishes. And so unknown territory is unknown to you,
Mhm.
but you have to walk with him through that process. And so
Mhm.
I think for me, the me now, I I'm going to tell you, anytime I see myself being reactive in any way, and when I say reactive, I meant to mention this earlier. I don't mean just out of emotions, like lashing out in anger. I'm talking about if you're responding to emails past time you said you were capable of, or if you're in still at work and you haven't told your manager, or you're still at work, you haven't taken time to eat, or you haven't set a boundary somewhere. There, that's a reactive leadership state. When you're responding and feeling pulled everywhere and like you don't have any control of your life, that is automatic. That's a reactive state in leadership. It doesn't just mean lashing out.
So,
Yes.
what does visibility look like for you in this season, having transitioned out of the spotlight where you were like first lady, all that,
Mhm.
doing all these things in the limelight, to where you are right now? What does that look like for you?
To me, strategic visibility, because it's so easy to be seen. That's easy. But I specifically, strategic visibility is how you show up. And I think it's specifically when you're under pressure, because when everything is going well, that's easy. But
Mhm.
when you have every reason to fold, or when you have every reason to blast off, or go outside of who you are and it actually be justified.
Yeah.
But I think who you are, how you show up, because I believe that when it comes to strategic visibility, I would say it's doing the right thing at the right time for the right reason, producing the
Mhm.
right outcomes.
That's good. Right thing at the right time for the right reason, right outcomes. Okay. Now, compared to what it was before, what was it like before?
Before, it was doing the right thing for the wrong reasons at the wrong time for the wrong.
So the only thing that was different was the right thing. Everything else was
Right,
off.
right. My
And that's
intent.
key,
Mhm, mhm, mhm.
because
That
a
is
lot of
key.
us miss that. We can
Mhm,
do the right thing, but wrong reasons, wrong timing, and the
mhm,
outcomes, the fruit. What is the fruit
mhm.
of this situation? That's also
Absolutely.
very key. Now, a lot of women, when it comes to exiting, and men too,
Mhm.
when we look at exits, we can feel like that is failure.
Yes.
Talk to us a little bit about how do we navigate that?
I think if we can normalize exits being a part of leadership decisions,
Mm-hmm.
I think that would shift our perspective. Because when you enter a thing, it's okay to evolve and exit a thing,
Yeah.
whether it's forced or whether you choose to walk away. That
Mm-hmm.
it's exits are a part of life, and it's our perception is what the key is. To understand that it's because I made the mistake of thinking I was a failure because of that. I went through that stage for a brief minute, but I had to understand I was extracted for a purpose. And my leadership didn't unravel, it was transferred.
Mm. That is
And
so
it
good.
go ahead.
So it goes back to what we were talking about, the wilderness, right? And the
Mhm.
Moses and the Joshua thing. And if we bring it to birthing, I
Mhm.
go back to exits need to be normalized, the endings need to be normalized.
Mhm.
Because again, to everything that God is asking us to birth, there is
Mhm.
a time and a season for everything. We want the positive side of things
Yes.
with, without the other parts. We want the springtime and summer without the winters and the falls of our life.
Absolutely.
We want the birthing without recognizing that to birth something, for life to exist, there has to
Mhm.
be an exit out of the womb. And if we
Absolutely.
don't exit out of the womb, God will push us out of the womb of incubation. Or
Mhm.
if we insist on staying, that results in an abortion. The
Mhm.
things, the dreams, the desires, the ideas that God has
Mhm.
given us, if we don't exit when God is telling us to end and exit something, we will find ourselves in spaces where we abort the purpose of God. And you
Mhm.
mentioned this at some point. You talked about we will delay the
Mhm.
elevation to our next level of leadership.
Absolutely, because our brain is designed to keep us comfortable. And
Yeah.
so at the first sign of us not having control, we adhere to being comfortable. But
Mm,
growth is in the discomfort.
absolutely. So, talk to us briefly about what exactly is the clean exit method and how does it equip high level leaders to preserve their integrity during periods of transition?
Yes, ma'am. It is consisted of 4 steps, and that is composure, strategy, control, and repositioning. Those
Mhm.
are the 4 steps. And basically what it helps you do is basically because you take your eyes off of the exit itself and off of people, and it helps you lead the exit because my I have a firm belief from my own experience that regardless of what you lost, I lost the marriage, I lost the platform, I
Mhm.
lost the title, I lost all the material things that came with my marriage. I started over even in that territory. But
Mhm.
if you have your reputation, a clean reputation, and if
Mhm.
you have your leadership credibility and you lead that matters more than when you were in the role. That has an effect on your legacy more than when you were in the role. So if you have those two things intact, you can reposition and start over in any space without having to do damage control.
That
it's
part.
it's it's reputation protection against reputation risk, and it's leadership preservation.
Yes.
That's what it's all about, a decision structure to lead your exit versus
So
react
you're
to it.
saying even in situations where you are being forced out, you
Yes.
can still lead the transition by how you choose to position yourself internally and how
Yes.
you choose to respond versus react to the situation.
Absolutely.
Mm,
Because this is what I find when you are under the pressure to under especially a forced exit, you these are two things that I see the mistake happens. Number one, they speak too soon,
mm,
or the main one is they move in silence, giving other people control of the narrative. And both are damaging to the reputation and credibility.
so you're saying timing and reading
Timing.
and discernment is also key
Yes.
as you navigate through this exit, that you are
Yes.
not, again, taking a moment to pause,
Hmm.
to step back, to
Hmm.
reflect, to actually own your response,
Yes.
rather than, again, allowing other people to push you into a place of either
Absolutely.
silence or reaction.
Yes, because I call it untrained urgency.
Ooh.
That's what you're when you operate from that place. Now leadership isn't the exit isn't a decision now. Now it's a reaction.
Mm-hmm.
And so ties into the strategic visibility is making sure that what you do is not from a place of emotions, embarrassment, ego, pride, or but it's out of decision execution.
Yeah.
A decision strategy
Yeah.
is what it's all about.
That is so good. Wow. Untrained urgency. Okay.
Hmm.
So what happens when leaders expand
Hmm.
and try to move without setting healthier or boundaries? And what are some of the red flags or common mistakes that you've seen in your work with leaders when they're trying to be visible, but not doing that internal work, not doing that healing work, not doing that repositioning internally that grounds them? What have you observed in your work with leaders?
That very thing the key, y'all, is when you find yourself being reactive. That is no when you're reactive. So that I have had a couple clients. Um, I've had one, um, not to go too far, but basically the common mistake I see is the silence. I
Mm-hmm.
left in silence and nobody tried to speak up for me. And I had literally had to tell somebody it's not their job to speak up for you. It was yours. You have to stand in your truth. And then I have some of them who stay silent because they fear causing volatile situations. And I'm like, but they are grown people and they are responsible for their own reactions.
Absolutely.
You are responsible for standing in truth and speaking up when you need to speak up. And
Mm-hmm.
then I have had some people where I'm like, I just had to be honest and take my advisory hat off and be a sister and just be like, don't say anything.
Mm-hmm.
Because
No.
no, this is not that time. So
Mm-hmm.
and that's when I guide them through responsibility and
Mm-hmm.
helping self-awareness and those things. It just depends on the exit itself, because this is why when I have a client, the very first thing I do is take them on a clean exit readiness assessment. That's how I determine how I'm able to advise whether you need to speak up or
Mm-hmm.
whether you need to, the timing of it and all those things come from that assessment.
It's strategy. It's
Mm-hmm.
wisdom. It's how to
Mm-hmm.
exercise wisdom. Now,
Absolutely.
what are some of the mindset shifts that have to happen for a leader to embrace the clean exit without the fear of failure or judgment?
I think not only from the reactive leadership to proactive leadership, I think self leadership over people, worrying about leadership over people.
Yeah. Ooh. Okay. Lead yourself first.
Lead yourself first. I think that's key. If you focus at this is your time to focus on you,
Mhm.
because anything else is trying to control, you can't control anything else until you have rulership of your spirit. And that's what the clean exit method is all about, is governance, rulership
Over yourself first.
over yourself, over your emotions, your decisions. Absolutely.
Whew, okay. There's so much I want to go into, but we are almost at time. I
Absolutely.
want to go real quick into your we will probably have a part two because we need to go into all these other stuff.
Okay.
But you have an offer. You have a 90-minute clean exit strategy session.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
you have a bonus of a recap playbook. Share with us a little bit what that is, and then how this helps people, leaders specifically, prepare for what's next.
Okay. Well, definitely, it's basically a 90-minute call where we take time, as I stated, about the assessment. So what we'll do, I'll walk you through the reputational risk. I will have to evaluate what's at stake if you be quiet. What's at stake if you choose to speak, and
Mhm.
then we'll go through visibility triggers.
Mhm.
Is your exit forced? Have rumors started already? I need to know what your triggers, identify where your triggers are, and then
Mhm.
your leadership goals. What do you want to protect?
Mhm.
What, and it is not about just exiting. It's about repositioning. Do you see anything for what's next?
Mhm.
Because I strongly believe that the key to a transition and being able to move without fear is knowing where you're going. Like re-
Mhm.
renewing your mind with vision books, vision leadership, so that you and getting in those spaces with people who are already killing it in their new space as well.
Absolutely. So you're not just exiting to exit. You're exiting with purpose. You're going.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Ooh, take through these questions. What is one piece of advice that you will give to a woman who's listening right now, who feels like they're called to more and knows that they're building something, or they've been called to build something, but knows that something needs to end first?
I want you to embrace that where there are new beginnings, endings come with that. And
Mhm.
I want you to understand that this is not a failure. Your leadership is not unraveling, it's
Mhm.
transferring. It's a new space, and you have been proven, and
Mhm.
you are qualified and you're proven. And I want you to boldly and courageously accept that call and that nudging for more, because it wouldn't be there if you wasn't ready. And
Mhm.
that's what I want you to do. I want you, and I want, if you are actually listening and you feel the nudge to, I don't want you to wing it. I would love to partner with you on this. And if you are listening and you are already pushed out or forced out and you're going through this transition, I would love to come along the journey and help you get to your next level in your leadership space.
So, how can they connect with you so that they can get that walk along of that partnership with you?
Absolutely. Twaneika Crawford on all platforms. But if you, I have 15-minute free consultation calls that are available. It is bit.ly/clean exit call.
Okay.
And we can go over and see if the advisory, 90-minute advisory, is something that would help you move forward.
Absolutely. Now, y'all, all this will be available in the show notes below. You'll have a link to everything that is Twaneika and to that 15-minute consultation, as well as the 90-minute exit strategy. So I want to make sure that you connect with her, y'all. Thank you so much again, y'all.
Thank
This,
you,
I
sis.
believe this conversation was absolutely necessary because, y'all, again, take three for us to get through this. The power went out, the internet went out, the sound went out, like everything. So I pray that you got something from this episode. If we don't just want to go viral, we don't just want to be visible, but we
Absolutely.
want to make sure that whatever we're planting in this season is planted with integrity for our next
Yes.
level. We want our leadership to be in alignment with God's assignment for our lives, and
Yes.
recognize that the exits in our life are just as important as the entries in our leadership journey. So if this
Yes.
episode spoke to any of you, please share it with somebody, tag us, reach out to Twaneika for your own strategy session. And everybody, until next time, walk boldly, exit clean, and
Yes.
stay unleashed.
Woo!